Hi, this is Jackie Chin, and you're watching Horror Fix. Today's guest, very, very interesting, a blast from the past. It's August 9th, 1969. The echoes of free love movement are in full swing, as well as a very notorious murder that has shaken America to its core. And for decades, at least four, the echoes of that time have moved forward and have fallen on the ears of our current guest, who through that echo has created a docuseries exclusively on Peacock, premiering Tuesday the 19th of November, with all 3 available episodes to be streamed. The docuseries includes more than 100 hours of conversations over 20 years. I present director Billie Mintz. And your project is?
Oh, it's called Making Manson.
Fabulous. I am very, very excited to be able to have you here. And so we shall begin. You have dedicated a large part of your life to bringing this series and learning about what Charles Manson has done through a number of hours of conversation. What drove you to take this large part of your life to do a docuseries on Charles Manson?
What drove me particularly, when you're brought onto a project, the project was created by Renowned Films, and they wanted to tell the story of Manson with 20 years of archival that nobody had heard before, which is a conversation between John Michael Jones and Charles Manson over 20 years, which is not an archive that we have in the world and we didn't know about. Manson that we know, the Manson we know is very limited with the interviews that he did and parole hearings he did. We have a very limited insight into Manson's perspective of what happened in a story that has been going on for 50 years. So to be able to have this responsibility with a team of people at Renowned, it took a team because we had to listen to 100 hours of tape, listening for what did Manson have to say about these, infamous, terrible, tragic murders that have like scarred us all, the psyche of all of us. And is there new insight into this? And I think for me, this is history, and history is important. We were told about a satanic cult leader that was not at the crimes, but was able to mind control people into committing these atrocious crimes. And so, that was an audience that was told this in 1969, 1970, and a story to a society that is very much different than the society we are right now, with the information that we have right now about mental health, about mind control, about cults. Remember, Manson was our first cult leader, and
Yes.
you never forget your first cult leader. And I think he had a huge effect of us, and to be able to listen to the this so-called cult leader, I think one of the big things you realize is I haven't had many conversations with cult leaders, but he didn't sound like a cult leader.
They're not like they're all over the place and
Yeah.
hey, I'd like to have sit down and have a glass of wine with you and talk about what's rolling around in your mind.
Yeah, he didn't sound like a cult leader to me. And also, I didn't fall under any sort of spell after listening to him for 100 hours. And that's more than any person has ever listened to him. So, remember that these people only knew Manson in the time of the 2 years leading up
Yes.
to the murder. And here we're listening to 20 years. So I didn't see him as a cult leader. I didn't fall under any sort of spell. And so I think that that was a real invitation to like, okay, well, what else has been told to an audience that was maybe less sophisticated than we are right now? And I think that's what we have here is a retelling of the story, which doesn't make it any less tragic what happened, and it doesn't, take away or take anybody off the hook. But I think facts are important, and I think that having this sort of evidence of 20 years to discern through and question and investigate. I think that's what, that's why I dedicated so much time to it, because I wanted to know more of the truth.
I watched the series. It is cinematically on spot. It has a way of bringing you back to that time, and perhaps for some that watch this series, they will be like, whoa, this feels really, really like it's pulling up some deep, deep memory. And it's interesting that you are able to bring some of the people from the literal past and have them listen to the sound of his voice. In that first episode, there is an individual who, when you start to roll the tape or listen, play the audio, their body seems to have like he's right there and he's right in front of them. None of this was scripted. A lot of times people will do a series and they'll make people kind of like do a reenactment of. This does not have that flavor. Also the coloring, the way that you moved between talking with the individual in front of you and then going to the clips, I didn't find that distracting at all. You have a gift when it comes to putting the viewer also into the field of perspective. In what way did you learn how to do that?
Well, filmmaking is a collective effort. And you mentioned a number of things, being both the cinematography, the coloring, the choices that are made. It could go many ways. And that's a team of really extremely talented people. The job of a director is to surround yourself with people who are way more talented than you are. And then you could have interviews like this where it's like,
Yes.
hey, you're brilliant. But in fact, it's the other people that are brilliant. And so, the coloring in the films that our DP James, our cinematographer James Triven, he we wanted it to look like you're watching what how George Lucas would have shot an interview during Star Wars times, because that is the time that was going on. And then we had our colorists who were able to make that look. And I think we wanted to reflect what it was like at that time. So not only when we bring our contributors into this space, psychologically they sort of feel they're back in those times.
It was I felt myself being pulled into it, and it is very riveting. I also enjoy the fact that we're getting media response. There is a part in the first episode where this lady who had been actively doing research was very vehement about particulars that were to happen or not happen, that she would be a part of or not a part of. And to not ruin it for anyone, that's all I'm going to say about that. They're very raw emotion from the start all the way to the finish. You will feel like you have had an experience that will remain with you for a very long time.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. That is very touching for you to say that. And
So,
that was our intention.
so in this, you hear Manson speaking, and a lot of it in some way feels like he's trying to be a little bit remorseful, a little bit more introspective. And from what you knew before you got into this docuseries, did you find in any way, as you were saying a little bit earlier, that you didn't really feel too much like this? But I'm going to ask anyway. Was there anything that kind of like pulled to you, or did you feel in any way manipulated to work the line the way you did?
I'm going to start this with the justice system is built on not necessarily finding out the truth, but who wins the trial, right? Which story wins? And if we lived in a more perfect world of justice, you would have the defense and the prosecution working together to bring their facts together to try to find what the truth is. But the story that won in the trial was this really sensational story that lays a lot of the responsibility towards Manson. And so this becomes a story about what is Manson responsible and what is his responsibility. And the one thing that I really took away from this is regardless of whether Manson was responsible or not, and to what degree with which he was responsible, that Manson might not understand his culpability in this. That Manson might not understand that certain things, he may not be responsible for, brainwashing people and even ordering the kill.
Yes.
But but there's an abacus of responsibility of what sort of influence he had over these children. And I'm not saying that he influenced these children to kill, but he did have an influence. And I don't think Manson was be able to be aware of his responsibility. I don't think he had that ability based on his upbringing, based on where his core lessons came from. And that's what we do in the show, is that we learn what made Manson, what made him think the way he thought, what made him act the way he act, what made people respond to him the way they responded to him. And I think we present a way more nuanced version of history based on facts and based on our understanding as people now, because we're not a society from 1969 anymore. We're a society from 2024. We're a lot more sophisticated. We discern through a lot more nonsense than we did at the time. And we didn't have 20 years of Manson talking and revealing a lot about himself and these crimes that have left us so perplexed.
Thank you for your time and your passion in the making of Manson. I would like to thank MSNBC Universal for the ability to be able to view your production. And I would also like to thank the individual that brought us together. It was much appreciated. This is Jackie Chin, and you've been listening to Horror Fix.